A fool who thinks they're untouchable is more dangerous to themselves than to anyone else. Arrogance blinds, and blindness leads straight to the fall. They thought they had you cornered, chosen ones. They laughed behind closed doors, thinking you were in the dark while they moved in secrecy. They spun their web of lies, convinced you wouldn't see the strings they pulled. But now they realize the truth, and it terrifies them. You were never blind. You were never fooled. You were simply watching, waiting, letting them dig their own graves. And now they stand there, shaken, exposed, unable to hide from what they always feared. You knew all along. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe. Every time you do, it helps spread this message to more chosen ones, signaling to the universe and to the system that we are rising, that their illusions are crumbling, that the truth cannot be buried. They never understood the power of being chosen. It's not just insight, not just wisdom. It's the way your very existence disturbs their false reality. You don't need to lift a finger, and yet they feel your presence like a shadow they can't shake. The weight of your awareness haunts them, because when a chosen one walks into a room, deception begins to tremble. They thought they were moving in silence, but you heard every whisper before they even spoke. They thought they were steps ahead, but you had already mapped out every path, every trap, every failed attempt to keep you contained. They fought you, not realizing they were fighting something far greater, the universe itself. You see, chosen ones aren't just people, they are walking truths. And truth is the one force that cannot be manipulated, controlled, or silenced. They spent years trying to rewrite reality, building their empire on lies, deception, and control. But the problem with illusions, they shatter the moment they are seen for what they are. That's why they fear you. Not because of what you do, but because of what you represent. Proof that their power was never real to begin with. Proof that no matter how much they scheme, manipulate, or attempt to rewrite the narrative, truth will always emerge. Now, look at them, scrambling, panicked. Every move they make is drenched in desperation. They try to act like they're still in control, but the cracks are showing. The confidence they once had, gone. The smirks they wore, like armor, faded. They feel the shift, and it terrifies them. They are no longer the hunters, they are the hunted. And the thing chasing them isn't you, it's their own guilt, their own realization that they were never as powerful as they believed. That no matter how high they climbed, one moment of truth was all it took to bring their tower crashing down. And now they're left questioning everything, every word they spoke, every move they made, every game they played. Did you already know? Did you see it coming? Were you always steps ahead, just waiting for them to trip over their own arrogance? Yes, you were. That's the power of being chosen. You don't need to destroy them. They destroy themselves the moment they realize you were never blind. So let them fear. Let them unravel under the weight of their own deception. Let them stand in the ruins of their own illusions, knowing that the very thing they tried to control was always beyond their reach. And to you, chosen one, the one who was always steps ahead, the one they underestimated, your presence here is no coincidence. Whether this is your first time or you've been standing strong with us, know this. Your awareness is your power, and they fear it. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and comment the number 77 if you've ever felt their fear shift the air around you. Their illusions are breaking, and now let's break them down step by step. If you are truly chosen, you'll feel the pull to stay till the end. Let's get started. Number 1. They thought they held the strings. Turns out they were the puppets. The most dangerous trap is the one a fool builds for someone else, only to fall into it themselves. They smirked, thinking they were in control. They played their games, convinced they were pulling the strings, whispered lies, set traps, moved in shadows, believing they were untouchable. But the whole time, they were the ones being played. They didn't realize the universe doesn't favor deception. It aligns itself with truth. It bends reality for the chosen ones. They weren't just fighting against you. They were fighting against the very system of existence itself. And now they feel the weight of their failure pressing down on them. The panic in their eyes, the cracks in their confidence. It's the moment they realize the illusion was always theirs, while the reality was always yours. They strutted like kings, believing they had you trapped in their little web. Every calculated lie, every manipulative tactic, they thought they were steps ahead. But what happens when a spider forgets it's being watched? What happens when the hunter doesn't realize they're the prey? They become reckless, sloppy, drunk off their own illusion of power. And that's exactly what happened. You let them believe they were winning. You let them think they had outsmarted you. Why? Because nothing makes an enemy weaker than their own arrogance. When someone believes they've won, they stop looking over their shoulder. They get comfortable, and in that comfort, they expose themselves. Every weakness, every insecurity, every desperate move they made to keep you down. And you saw it all. You saw how they needed to control, how they needed to feel superior. You saw how fragile they really were beneath the act. Because, chosen one, if they were truly powerful, they wouldn't have needed to scheme against you. Think about it. Why did they try so hard? Why did they go out of their way to deceive, to manipulate, to orchestrate their little game? Because they knew, deep down, they were never really in control. The universe always moves in favor of the chosen ones. You don't need to manipulate or deceive. The truth is your power. The system works with you, not against you. And no matter how many games they play, how many masks they wear, or how many tricks they try, reality always catches up. And now it's caught up with them. Look at them now. The confidence they once had, it's turned into doubt. The arrogance they flaunted, it's unraveling. Their hands are shaking, their words are stumbling, their minds are racing, because they don't know how much you knew. When did you figure it out? How long have you been steps ahead? Did they ever really have control at all? No, they didn't. They weren't playing against you. They were playing against something much bigger, something they could never control, the balance of the universe itself. And the universe never loses. Every time they thought they were making progress, they were only walking deeper into the maze they built for themselves. They weren't moving forward. They were tying themselves in knots. And now, as they struggle to break free, they're starting to understand. You were never trapped. They were. That's why they fear you. Not because of what you did, but because of what you knew. Because while they were playing checkers, you were rewriting the entire rulebook. They fought to control you, but now they're the ones who feel powerless. They tried to keep you blind, but now they're the ones stumbling in the dark. The moment they realized you knew all along, that's when their world started to fall apart. So let them feel it. Let them wrestle with their own paranoia. Let them question every move they made, every secret they thought they kept, every illusion they believed was real. Because now they aren't just facing their mistakes. They're facing the truth. And the truth? It was never on their side. Number 2. They thought they were ghosts in the dark, but you saw every footprint they left behind. The cleverest deception is only as strong as the first crack it leaves behind, and once the cracks start, the whole illusion falls apart. They moved like shadows, whispering in corners, exchanging glances, thinking they were unseen. They crafted their deception with careful hands, convinced they were the masters of secrecy. But what they never understood is that you were always watching. They thought they were slick, measuring every word, faking every smile, choosing their pauses like actors in a play. They believed their little tricks made them untouchable, but deception, no matter how refined, always leaves fingerprints. And you saw them all. Every nervous twitch, every glance held for a second too long, every forced laugh, every sudden silence. They thought they were crafting a flawless illusion, but you were dissecting it piece by piece. While they plotted in the dark, convinced of their secrecy, you saw through every move before they even made it. And now, the walls are closing in. The moment they realized you weren't fooled, the moment they understood that their hidden games were never hidden at all, that's when the fear started creeping in. That's when the panic took hold. Now they're scrambling, retracing their steps, wondering where they slipped. Was it the way they spoke? The way their stories never quite added up? Was it that one time they looked away too quickly? They don't know. And that uncertainty, it's eating them alive. The irony is, they slipped from the start. Their so-called mastery of deception, it was just a carefully built house of cards, and with every fake gesture, every calculated word, they were stacking it higher. Until now, when it's all starting to collapse. They thought they were leading the game, that every move was theirs to control. But the truth? They were never leading anything. They were leaving a trail, one you followed effortlessly. They believed their confidence made them untouchable, that their arrogance could shield them from exposure. But that's the fatal flaw of liars. The more they believe in their own deception, the more reckless they become. And you simply waited. You let them think their game was working. Let them get comfortable in their false sense of security. Let them spin their web until they were tangled in it themselves. And then reality hit them like a freight train. Now, they can't look at you the same way. Every conversation replays in their mind. Every interaction is a question mark. They hesitate before speaking, measuring their words more carefully. But it's too late. The moment they realize they were never in control, they lost everything. They can't undo it. They can't erase what's been seen, can't go back and fix their mistakes. And that's what haunts them the most. Not just that you know, but that you always knew. The paranoia is setting in now. The realization that you were never blind, just patient. And the worst part, they can't escape the truth. They thought they were running the show, but now they see it for what it really was. A performance they weren't even directing. They thought they were keeping secrets, but the only one truly in the dark was them. So let them feel it, chosen one. Let them sit in the wreckage of their own foolishness. Because in the end, their biggest mistake wasn't the lies they told. It was believing, even for a second, that they could ever hide the truth from you. Number 3, they thought they were watching you. Turns out you were watching them. The greatest trick a chosen one ever pulls is letting the enemy think they're in control, while quietly dismantling them from the inside. They believed they were observing you, analyzing you, picking you apart, watching for a slip-up, waiting for a weakness. They thought if they studied you long enough, they'd find a way to control you, to use your strengths against you. But what they didn't realize was that the game was never about you being exposed. It was about them exposing themselves. And they did. Every conversation, every move, every false display of confidence, they thought they were playing it smart. But you weren't just listening to their words. You were listening to the spaces between them. You weren't just watching their actions. You were watching the hesitation before them. And what did you find? Fear. They were so desperate to study you, to figure you out, but in doing so, they showed you everything about themselves, their fears, their insecurities, their weaknesses. They thought they were hunting you, but really, they were putting their own fears on display, and you saw everything. It was never about you hiding. It was about letting them reveal what they feared most. You let them believe they were in control. You let them feel like they were gathering information. You played along just enough to make them feel confident, because a confident enemy is a careless enemy, and careless enemies make mistakes. Think about it. Why did they need to study you in the first place? Why were they so obsessed with understanding how you think, how you move, how you operate? Because they knew they were up against something they couldn't fully grasp. They could sense it, the way you moved differently, the way you never reacted the way they expected, the way you remained calm while they were constantly on edge. They knew something was off, but they couldn't put their finger on it, and that's what drove them insane. They thought they were getting close to cracking the code, but every time they thought they had figured you out, you proved them wrong. They thought they had a pattern to your behavior, but you moved in ways they couldn't predict. And slowly, it started to dawn on them. They were never in control of this game. They spent so much time trying to figure you out, they never realized you had already figured them out. And now, look at them, scrambling, confused, wondering how they got here. They thought they had the upper hand, but the whole time they were simply exposing their own weaknesses. Now they sit in silence, replaying every interaction, questioning every move they made. How much did you know? When did you figure them out? Were they ever actually fooling you? No, they weren't fooling you. They were fooling themselves. Because a truly strong person doesn't need to study their opponent. They don't need to control, manipulate, or scheme. They simply are. And you were always steps ahead. Not because you played their game better, but because you never needed the game to begin with. That's why they feel powerless now. That's why their confidence is slipping, why their words are losing their edge. Because the moment they realized you knew all along, the weight of their own insecurities came crashing down on them. They thought they had you figured out, but in the end, it was always the other way around. Number 4, they shouted lies, but their actions whispered the truth. A liar's words can build a fortress, but their actions leave the doors wide open. They thought they had you fooled, chosen one. They spoke with confidence, wove their deception with precision, and acted like they had everything under control. But no matter how polished their words were, their actions betrayed them. They forgot one thing: lies require consistency, but the truth reveals itself effortlessly. Their mouths spoke one thing, but their hands fumbled. Their eyes darted, their movements stiffened, their timing was off. They were so busy crafting an illusion with words that they didn't realize their own bodies were screaming the truth. And you caught it all. Every hesitation, every nervous glance, every unnatural pause between words. They thought they were playing it cool, thought their performance was flawless. But every chosen one knows that deception can never mask energy. A liar will tell you what they want you to believe, but their actions, they tell you what they're trying to hide. That's why they hate being around you, because no matter how well they rehearse their script, you feel the truth before they even open their mouth. They tried to look you in the eyes, but their gaze kept shifting. They forced a laugh, but their voice cracked. They gave empty reassurances, but their energy reeked of fear. And now they're realizing that you were never listening to their words. You were reading them the whole time. That's what separates you from them. They rely on illusions, on smoke and mirrors, on making people believe what isn't real. But you don't need words. You don't need explanations. You don't even need proof. Because chosen ones don't see with their eyes. They feel with their intuition. And now, their worst fear has come true. You never needed them to confess. You never needed them to slip up, because their own actions have already told you everything. Think back. Every time they lied to your face, something felt off, didn't it? You couldn't always explain it, but deep down, you knew. A shift in energy, a break in character, the slightest inconsistency. It was always there. And now, they know that you knew. That's why they're uneasy around you now. That's why they avoid eye contact, why they stutter through their sentences, why they rush their words like they're running out of time. Because they are. Time is up. The game is over. And they lost the moment they assumed you only listened to words. The truth doesn't hide, no matter how much they try to cover it. Lies can be spoken, but truth seeps through actions like water, through cracks in stone. And no matter how hard they try to patch those cracks, the pressure builds, the dam weakens, and eventually it all comes flooding out. Now they're scrambling, trying to backtrack, trying to over-explain, trying to figure out how much you know. And the answer? Everything. They can't undo it. They can't change what's already been revealed. And worst of all, they can't control you. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't need words to see the truth. And that's why they're scared. Not because you caught them lying, but because they know you'll never trust them again. That's the real loss for them. Not being exposed, not being called out, but losing the ability to deceive you. Because now, nothing they say matters. They could beg, they could deny, they could spin an entirely new lie. But you won't believe them. Not because you're skeptical, not because you're paranoid, but because they already told you the truth through their own actions. And there's no coming back from that. Number 5. They wanted a reaction. Instead, they got the cold grip of silence. The loudest scream in a liar's mind is the silence of the one they failed to deceive. They pushed, they poked, they set traps, waiting for you to stumble into their web. They crafted their illusions, fully expecting you to fight back, to defend yourself, to explain, to beg. But instead, you gave them nothing. No reaction, no response, no energy to feed on. And that was the moment their world began to crumble. They never planned for silence. They never considered the possibility that you wouldn't play along. Their entire strategy relied on your engagement, on pulling you into their mind games, on making you dance to their rhythm. But when you refused to move, they lost control. You see, silence is the most dangerous weapon against manipulators. It doesn't give them anything to twist. It doesn't give them a weakness to exploit. It forces them to face the emptiness of their own deception. And that's exactly what happened. At first, they brushed it off. They told themselves you were weak, that you were afraid, that you didn't have the courage to fight back. But then, something started to shift. The more silent you became, the more desperate they got. The more they realized they weren't in control of the situation at all. Because your silence wasn't surrender, it was dominance. They expected you to lash out, to defend yourself, to give them something, anything to work with. But when you stood still, unmoved, unfazed, they were the ones who started to break. Because now they had to sit with their own actions. They had to wrestle with the weight of their own lies, their own guilt, their own paranoia. And that's the one thing manipulators cannot handle, being left alone with their own chaos. Think about it. What happens when a performer loses their audience? What happens when a puppet master tugs the strings, only to find they're holding nothing but air? They fall apart. And that's what you made them do. By refusing to engage, you forced them to engage with themselves. And that's the one thing they never prepared for. Now, they're the ones questioning everything. They're the ones replaying every moment, every conversation, every scheme, trying to figure out how much you knew, how long you've been steps ahead, if you've always seen through their game. And the answer? Yes, you did. They wanted to believe they had the upper hand, but in truth, the moment they had to fight against silence, they were already losing. Because silence exposes everything. It reveals who they truly are. It magnifies their insecurities. It forces them to confront the one thing they tried to bury beneath their games, the truth. They built their power on illusions, on deception, on making you react in ways that served them. But when you didn't, when you simply observed, let them flail, let them unravel, the illusion collapsed. Now, look at them, scrambling, panicking, trying to find a way to regain control. But it's too late. You never needed to fight them. The universe did it for you. Because the truth doesn't need to scream. It doesn't need to argue. It just is. And now, they have no choice but to face it. So let them drown in their own chaos. Let them spiral in the silence they never expected. Let them watch as everything they built falls apart. Not because you fought back, but because you refused to play the game. They thought they could control you. Instead, your silence controlled them. And now, they can't escape it. Number 6. Their so-called power moves were just desperate ego tricks. The loudest in the room is often the weakest, desperate noise masking the silence of true strength. They strutted around, acting like they held all the cards, throwing their weight around with false confidence. They thought their manipulations were masterstrokes, their strategies genius. But it was never about strategy, was it? No, their every move was a cry for validation, a desperate attempt to convince you, and more importantly themselves, that they were in control. They wore their arrogance like armor, hoping it would cover up the cracks beneath. But you saw through it. You always did. They mistook arrogance for power. They thought that by moving loudly, by creating chaos, they could disguise their fear. They pulled their petty tricks, tried to corner you with their mind games, and smiled smugly, thinking you were oblivious. But what they never understood is that real power doesn't need to prove itself. Real power is silent, steady, unshaken by noise. They played their roles with such conviction, caught up in their own delusions of grandeur. Every insult, every smug glance, every calculated move, they believed it made them untouchable. But ask yourself, why would someone truly powerful need to prove it? Only the insecure feel the need to broadcast their strength. Real strength is felt, not flaunted. They thought their mind games were winning them the battle, but the truth, they were revealing more about themselves than they ever realized. Every manipulation was a sign of their weakness. Every attempt to control you was rooted in their fear of being exposed. They were never moving from a place of strength. They were scrambling to cover up how fragile they truly were. Look at them now, chosen one, their so-called power moves. They're nothing more than desperate ego tricks, like a magician whose only trick is misdirection, hoping you won't see the emptiness behind the act. But you saw it. You always did. You didn't need to confront them. You didn't need to match their noise. You simply let them play out their game, knowing it was just a performance. True power isn't loud. It doesn't rely on manipulation or control. It's calm, unbothered, and observant. And you had the real power all along. You watched them dance around in their own chaos, mistaking it for progress. They thought their moves were intimidating, but they were only giving away their playbook, showing you exactly how they think, how they operate, how desperate they truly are. It's ironic, isn't it? The very moves they thought made them powerful were the same moves that exposed their insecurity. Their need for control was never about you. It was about their fear of losing the illusion of power they clung to so tightly. A truly powerful person doesn't need to control others. They control themselves. But these people, they couldn't even do that. Their own ego was their greatest weakness. Think back to every moment they tried to push you down, tried to make you feel small. The smirks, the backhanded compliments, the subtle jabs. It was all a game of projection. They needed to feel big, so they tried to make you feel small. But what they didn't realize is that the universe sees through false strength. The universe moves with truth. And the truth, it always wins. Now, they're standing there, the weight of their own insecurities pressing down on them. Their ego tricks aren't working anymore. Their power moves have lost their effect. And deep down, they're beginning to see it. That all along, the control they thought they had was nothing more than a mirage. A desperate illusion conjured up to hide their fear. Why did they think they needed to play these games? Why did they go so far to prove their power? Because they never had it to begin with. They were terrified of being seen for what they truly are: insecure, desperate, and afraid. They relied on deception because truth was too uncomfortable to face. And you didn't need to play along. You didn't need to prove anything. Your presence alone shook them. Your silence was louder than their noise. While they scrambled to maintain their facade, you stood firm, unmoved. That's true power. Not the illusion of control, but the reality of awareness. Let them feel the weight of their own games collapsing. Let them question every move they made, every lie they told, every manipulation they tried to use against you, because now they see it for what it was: a desperate attempt to cover up their own insecurity. And that's the final blow, not from you, but from their own realization. That all along they were never playing a game of power. They were exposing the weakness of their ego, their so-called power moves, just desperate tricks. And now they're left standing in the ruins of their own illusions, facing the truth they feared the most. They never had real power. Number 7. They needed your reaction. You gave them silence, and it destroyed them. A parasite without a host is nothing. A performer without an audience is just a fool talking to themselves. They thrived off your response, your energy, your frustration. Every little reaction you gave them was fuel. Every moment you engaged, whether in anger, defense, or even amusement, kept their illusion alive. Because deep down, they needed you to acknowledge them. They needed you to play your part in their twisted little script. But you gave them nothing. No anger, no validation, no sign that their words or actions held any weight. You let them sit in their own emptiness, starved of the attention they so desperately craved. And now, they're suffocating in the silence. They thought they had control, didn't they? Thought they could push your buttons, twist your emotions, make you dance to their tune. But what happens when a puppet master pulls the strings and the puppet doesn't move? Panic, confusion, desperation, because their entire existence was built around your reactions. They poked, prodded and provoked, waiting for the energy they could feed off of. But without your engagement, their power crumbled. The show they tried to put on fell apart because the audience, you, walked away. You see, chosen ones don't operate on the same level as the rest. You don't seek validation. You don't need permission to exist. And that's what makes you a nightmare to those who do. They want control, but they have none over you. They want to feel powerful, but without your reaction, they feel small. They want to be important, but in your world, they are nothing. And now, that realization is tearing them apart. They thought if they insulted you, you'd fight back. They thought if they spread lies, you'd defend yourself. They thought if they ignored you, you'd beg for their attention. But instead, you just kept moving forward. You didn't react. You didn't fight for their approval. You didn't need their acceptance to validate who you are. And that crushed them. Because without you, they have no purpose. Think about it. Why do they do what they do? Why the manipulation, the games, the back and forth? Because they need someone to see them, to react to them, to make them feel like they matter. And you took that away. Nothing is more terrifying to them than insignificance. To be seen as nothing, to be ignored, dismissed, forgotten. They built their entire self-worth around the idea that they could affect you, control you, or make you feel something. And now they're left questioning, if they don't react to me, do I even matter? If they don't fight back, was I ever really in control? If they don't acknowledge me, who am I? And that's where the real suffering begins. Because now they sit alone in the silence, realizing that you were never playing their game. Everything they did, every move they made, it was all in hopes of getting a response from you. But all they got was indifference, and indifference is more painful than hate. Hate would mean you still care. Anger would mean they still have power over you. Even arguing would mean they still hold some importance in your world. But silence? Silence tells them everything they never wanted to hear. That they don't matter. That they never had control. That without your reaction, they are nothing. And that realization stings more than anything you could ever say or do to them. Because in the end, their greatest fear wasn't losing power. It was never having it to begin with. Number 8. They played with the system. Now, they're the ones getting played. The universe doesn't bend to the will of the arrogant. It aligns with those who understand the flow. They thought they were smart, didn't they? Playing games, manipulating the system as if they were untouchable. They thought they could bend the rules, shift the narrative, play with the very forces of the universe. But here's the truth they never saw coming. When you try to manipulate the system will turn around and expose you. And you, chosen one, you weren't playing by their rules. You weren't dancing to their beat. You were always moving in sync with something far greater, far more powerful, the universe itself. While they scrambled to control everything around them, pulling strings and making moves like a puppeteer, they failed to realize the universe doesn't play favorites. It doesn't cater to arrogance or pride. It doesn't bend for those who think they can rewrite the world with their own hands. No, the universe bends for those who align themselves with truth, who move in harmony with the natural order. And you were always aligned. You didn't need to force anything. You didn't need to manipulate or deceive. The universe did the work for you every time. The chosen ones aren't just people. They're walking truths, and the universe has a way of making sure that truth is always revealed. So while they thought they were pulling all the strings, moving in silence and playing their cards like masters, what they failed to realize was that they weren't playing against you. They were playing against the very forces that govern existence. And that's a game no one wins when they don't have truth on their side. Every move they made, every lie they told, every trap they set, it was all built on the illusion of control. They believed they were outsmarting the world, outwitting fate itself. But all they were doing was setting themselves up for a fall. And the universe, it was watching, waiting for them to make their mistakes. It was waiting for the moment when their arrogance would be their undoing. Because there's nothing more dangerous than someone who believes they can control everything, especially when they're up against forces beyond their comprehension. Now, look at them. They thought they were clever. They thought they had you fooled. They thought they were pulling the strings while you danced to their rhythm. But now they're realizing that every time they thought they were ahead, they were just digging themselves into a deeper hole. You weren't a player in their game. You were a witness to their downfall. The truth is, chosen ones don't need to force their way into the world. The universe conspires to make sure they rise. And that's the difference between them and you. They were scrambling to control everything, to stay one step ahead, to build their little empire of lies. But all you had to do was align yourself with what is real, with what is true. And when you did that, everything fell into place. You didn't need to outwit them. You didn't need to play their games. You didn't need to manipulate the system to make your mark. You simply stood tall, confident in your truth, and let the universe take care of the rest. And while they thought they were untouchable, the universe was already shifting beneath their feet, dismantling the false empire they'd built. They thought they could outmaneuver you, outthink you, outlast you, but the truth is, you were never in the race. You were simply waiting for them to trip over their own arrogance, waiting for them to expose themselves. And now, they're left questioning everything. Every move they made, every secret they tried to keep, every lie they thought they told. They know it's all been exposed, and they have no one to blame but themselves. The real power lies not in outsmarting the world, but in understanding how the world works, and moving in alignment with it. That's the power of being chosen. You don't need to fight. You don't need to control. You don't need to manipulate. The universe has your back. And when you understand that, when you move with that power, there's nothing anyone can do to stop you. So let them fear. Let them scramble. Let them try to figure out how they lost the game. The truth is, they were never playing the right game to begin with, and now they'll never be able to escape the fact that they were never in control. And you always were. Number 9. They thought they could pull you into their drama, but you watched them burn. The loudest drama is often the sound of a weak mind trying to cover its tracks. They thought they were clever. They thought they could manipulate the situation, play their part, and draw you into the chaos they thrived on. Every tantrum, every outburst, every sudden storm they whipped up. They were all carefully crafted moments designed to provoke you, to get under your skin, to pull you into their game. They believed their chaos would unsettle you, throw you off balance, make you question your own reality. But they were wrong. You saw through it all. From the start, you knew exactly what they were doing. They thought they had you on the edge, caught in their whirlwind of manufactured crises and emotional outbursts. They thought they could break you down with their distractions, wear you thin with their manipulations. But what they failed to realize is that you were never playing by their rules. You were never meant to be part of their spectacle. You were always the observer, standing firm, watching as they dug their own graves with every dramatic display they put on. You weren't fooled by their antics. You didn't bite when they threw their bait, when they flared up with false emergencies, when they feigned hurt or outrage. You simply didn't engage. You knew from the very beginning that their chaos was their defense mechanism. It was the smoke and mirrors they used to cover up their own insecurities, their lack of true control. They wanted you to feel the weight of their emotions, to get swept up in their manufactured crisis. They wanted you to react, to give them the power they were too afraid to face alone. But you stood like a mountain, unmoved by the winds of their distraction. Every word they spoke was a test. Every outburst was a challenge. Every moment of fake drama was an invitation to a game they thought they could control. But you saw the strings. You saw the puppet show. You knew exactly what they were trying to do. And instead of reacting, you allowed them to play their part while you stood outside their chaos, watching, waiting. Because deep down, you knew something they could never understand. Real power isn't in the chaos. Real power is in the silence. Real power is in knowing when to engage and knowing when to stay completely still. And now, look at them. Look at what their drama has cost them. It has unraveled piece by piece because you never played into their hands. They thought their crises would break you, thought their emotional outbursts would rattle you. But instead, they exposed their own weakness. They showed the world exactly what they were made of: fragile, desperate, afraid to be seen for what they truly are. And you? You simply observed, calm and steady, while they flailed and twisted in their own storm. They tried to create urgency, to manipulate you into believing that their problems were yours. They threw tantrums, made accusations, stirred up trouble in a desperate attempt to pull you into their little world of madness. They wanted you to feel small. They wanted you to feel like you were part of their narrative. But you refused to play along. You stood firm in your truth, in your quiet power, knowing that their game could only exist as long as you played by their rules. The moment you refused to engage, their power dissolved. Now, they're left questioning everything. They're scrambling to regain control, to create a new distraction, to stir up another drama to draw you in. But it's too late. They've already exposed themselves. Their game is over. They were never in control because the whole time they were relying on you to react. And you never did. You didn't fall for their bait. You didn't give them the reaction they wanted, and that was their downfall. They thought they were powerful because they could create drama, but in the end, it was their own weakness that made them desperate for your attention. Chosen ones don't need to play in the sandbox of drama. They stand apart from it, unaffected by the noise, unaffected by the manipulation. They know that drama is a mask, and behind the mask lies nothing but fear, insecurity, and a need for control. They don't need to engage in emotional games or power struggles because they understand something that their drama-driven counterparts can never grasp. True strength is in knowing your worth, standing firm in your own energy, and refusing to be pulled into the distractions of others. So let them watch, let them scramble, let them try to rekindle the chaos they once believed was their weapon. The truth is, their power never lay in their outbursts. It never lay in their emotional manipulation or their calculated crises. Their power was always a mirage, a desperate illusion. And you saw through it from the start. You didn't need to respond. You didn't need to confront them. You didn't need to shout back or fight fire with fire. You simply let them exhaust themselves. You allowed them to burn out, their own drama consuming them while you remained untouched. You didn't react because real power doesn't need a reaction. It doesn't need to fight for attention. It simply exists. And now, as their drama fades into the past, you stand tall, strong, and unshaken. They thought their chaos would control you, but in the end, it was their own drama that unraveled them. And you're still standing, a silent force they can never understand, never manipulate, and never defeat. They lost because they thought they could pull you into their game, but in reality, they were never in control. They were just playing with their own fire, and now they're burned. Number 10. They tried to play mind games, but you were playing a whole different game. Their tricks were never meant to deceive you. They were meant to deceive themselves into thinking they had control. They believed they were the masterminds, spinning intricate webs of deception, calculating every move like chess players trying to outsmart you at every turn. They thought their clever words, their little mind tricks, and their manipulative tactics were enough to bend you to their will. They believed that by outwitting you, they could secure their control. But they never realized that their mind games were as shallow as a puddle in the desert, insubstantial and transparent to anyone who truly sees. You weren't fooled by their smoke and mirrors. They thought they were playing chess with you, making calculated moves, manipulating your thoughts and emotions to their advantage. But here's what they failed to understand. You weren't even in their game. You were operating on a completely different level, one where their shallow tactics couldn't even scratch the surface. You weren't playing their petty little games of manipulation and deception. You were playing a much bigger game, a game of truth, perception, and awareness. While they were bogged down in their fragile illusions, hoping you'd fall for their mind tricks, you were already above it all, watching their every move from a higher vantage point. You saw their actions for what they were: desperate attempts to control, to twist the narrative, to create confusion. But you weren't buying it. You understood something they never could. The most powerful force in the world is not manipulation. It's clarity. And you had that clarity in abundance. Their mind games didn't work on you because you weren't playing by their rules. They thought their carefully crafted lies and deceptive strategies would break you down, would keep you guessing, would make you doubt yourself. But you didn't need to doubt anything. You had truth on your side, and truth is a weapon that can never be defeated. The more they tried to confuse you, the clearer everything became. They were the ones lost in their own lies, not you. You saw their insecurities. You saw their need to control and manipulate. You could sense their desperation to keep you in the dark, to keep you from seeing the truth. And as they twisted themselves in knots, trying to pull you into their web, you simply stood outside of it, observing with clear eyes. They couldn't understand why their tricks weren't landing. They couldn't grasp why you weren't getting tangled in their lies, why you weren't reacting to their moves. And the reason? It was because you saw them for what they were: empty, shallow, and ultimately powerless. The truth was always right in front of them, but they couldn't see it. They were too busy creating false realities, spinning webs of manipulation, hoping you'd be caught in them. But you saw right through it. They never had control, not over you, not over the situation, not over anything. They thought they were the ones pulling the strings, but the truth is, they were always the puppets in this story. Now, as they sit in the ruins of their own deceptions, they're left wondering why their mind games failed. They thought they had you cornered, thought they had you confused, thought they could manipulate you into playing along. But the reality is that you were never in their game. You were operating on a deeper, more powerful level, one where their tricks were transparent, their motives exposed, and their strategies irrelevant. They were so caught up in their own little schemes that they failed to realize you were simply watching them unravel. They never understood that you weren't playing for the same prize. They thought they were outsmarting you with their clever words and calculated moves, but all they were doing was exposing their own desperation. The real game wasn't about who could deceive the other. It was about who could see through the illusions. And you saw through them all along. They thought they had control, but they were simply pawns in a game they didn't even understand. Now, look at them, sitting in the aftermath of their own games, wondering why nothing worked, why their manipulation fell flat. The answer? Because you never needed to play their game. You didn't need to outwit them. You didn't need to engage in their manipulations. All you had to do was see the truth. And when you saw the truth, everything else became irrelevant. Their mind games were built on a foundation of fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of losing control, fear of being seen for what they truly are. But that fear could never touch you, because you weren't playing on their level. You weren't reacting to their tricks. You were simply observing, understanding, and waiting for them to reveal themselves. They wanted to control you, manipulate you, bend you to their will. But what they didn't understand is that when you operate on a deeper level, one rooted in truth, clarity, and awareness, you can never be controlled. You don't need their mind games. You don't need their tricks. You just need to see the game for what it truly is. And once you do, the rest is history. They played shallow mind games, but you were playing a game they could never win. Number 11. Now they wonder just how much you knew all along. The paranoia has set in. Every word they spoke, every interaction they had with you, every subtle hint of manipulation, they're all replaying in their minds. They're questioning every moment, wondering when you first saw through their games, when you figured out their lies, how much you knew all along. And the truth? You knew everything. They believed they had you in the dark, feeding you false narratives, spinning webs of lies and deceit. But now, as the walls close in on them, they can't escape the uncomfortable truth. You were never fooled. From the beginning, you saw the cracks in their facade. You recognized the signs, the inconsistencies, the hidden motives. And they're terrified because they don't know how much you actually knew, how long you've been steps ahead, or when exactly you realized the truth. You weren't fooled by their words, their stories, or their promises. You didn't need them to slip up, to confess their wrongdoings. You simply watched as they created their own downfall. And now they're left in the dark, struggling to figure out when it all started to unravel. They're questioning every interaction, every word, every little act of manipulation, hoping they didn't reveal too much. But the truth is, you already knew it all, and that's the part they can't handle. Number 12. While they overanalyzed everything, you moved with instinctive precision. While they wasted countless hours plotting, second-guessing, and analyzing every step, you were moving with clarity and precision. Every decision you made, every move you took, was instinctual, effortless. You didn't need complex strategies to outmaneuver them because your instincts guided you. Your ability to read the situation, to feel the energy in the room, to see beyond the surface, these were the tools you used, and they were all you needed. They spent so much time overcomplicating things, trying to predict every angle, trying to outthink you at every turn, but you didn't need to think. You just moved with certainty, with purpose, and with a deep understanding of what was really going on. Their complex schemes crumbled in the face of your simple yet profound awareness. While they were caught in their own analysis paralysis, overthinking every move and second-guessing their choices, you were already acting, seeing through their games before they even made their next move. Now, as they watch you effortlessly navigate the chaos they created, they can't believe how wrong they were. They thought they had all the time in the world to plan and scheme, but you showed them that true power comes not from overthinking, but from instinct. And now they're left scrambling, realizing that their overcomplicated plots were no match for your effortless clarity. In conclusion, remember this: when you operate on a deeper level, nothing can touch you. Keep rising, chosen one. Like, subscribe, drop the number 77 in the comments, and share this message. See you tomorrow.